Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another podcast with me and the wonderful human being that is Vipan Maney. Good morning, Vipan.
Good morning, Simon. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you both, all two listeners.
So Vipan, we're talking about, we've sort of got a nice flow now to these podcasts, and we're talking about, we've gone from death to gratitude, and then today we're talking about happiness. I've got some, thoughts on happiness and feelings on it, but you and I have just had a really lovely chat before the podcast, and you are exuding happiness. So I thought it would be best for me to say, I guess my question for you is like, what is happiness? What's the purpose of happiness? What does happiness mean to you?
Well, yeah, you're right. Well picked up. Yeah, so we had this amazing chat beforehand because I was telling you what I've been up to, and I think the dinner that I went to, which was so self-affirming and gave me that high, was because I thought about it, and it's because the happiness emanated from me. I was so happy afterwards, I guess, because it confirmed that my purpose. I did have a purpose, so. My purpose, whatever I thought was my purpose, was reaffirmed at that meeting, at that dinner, you see. So I think, so the first point is, I think for everyone, for me, and I think for people to find happiness, I think you need, so what is happiness, you asked me as well. So happiness, so I'll go into that as well. So happiness for me is, it's a state of mind, but it's a state of being, and it's how you feel. And it's a very positive feeling. So that's one aspect of it. But where did it come from? It comes from many sources, and that particular event made me happy because I had a purpose, and it just confirmed that my purpose was there and worthwhile. So, and that made me happy, and so that event made me happy. But of course, happiness can come from many sources, from other people, from what makes you happy, what makes me happy, loads of other things that make me happy. But it's a state of mind that it's calmness and peacefulness. So you have a almost tranquility and inside of you that gives you happiness. And if you close your eyes, you can sort of feel that inside of you. But of course, things and people come at you every day that throw that away, and you have stresses and strains in life that knock your happiness, don't they? And it doesn't mean if you're happy that you're always going to be happy. So it's another feature of happiness for me. Well, I think it's in general. It's a temporary state in a way, because you can't always exude. Life is always. So let's be honest. Life is a curve. That bell curve. It's a wave. Sorry, say more interesting, more accurately, it's a wave. So it has its ups and downs. But I think, and everyone's level of happiness is different. So, what makes me happy, and what it takes to make me happy might not be the same for you or anyone else. But and we can talk about that as well. But yeah, so I know it's a very long answer, Simon, but this is what happens when you ask me a question. I could reverse the same to you then. What do you think happiness is, and what causes you to be happy?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Well, you asked it.
Yeah, well, you come out of addiction, actually. I think I've went on a real journey with happiness, because my life changed and this will sound, and I'll explain it afterwards, but my life changed for the better when I stopped chasing happiness, right? Because I was chasing happiness. I got taught, don't chase happiness, because what you're chasing will come and go. You won't find any permanent sense of joy, like any permanent sense of anything in an emotion, right? So happiness is as an emotion shouldn't be chased. And you can imagine an addict, right? The first time you put a drug in you, it's happiness, right? Problem is it wears off.
Yeah.
So I've gone on a really big journey with happiness, and I'll start at the beginning, which is like, there's a difference between pleasure and happiness. And you have to know the difference between what is pleasurable and what is happiness. And that was a year of like meditation for me, which was like, what is pleasure and what is happiness? There's something that gives you pleasure. It's fundamentally different from happiness, but how? The next piece of advice that sort of sealed the deal for me was chase meaning and happiness will come, right? So happiness is an indirect result of living a life of meaning, right? And I just love that like way of looking at it. Like happiness is a result of, it's an indirect result that comes from living a life of meaning.
Yeah, and we talk about that. Yeah, and I think it's really important. I want to emphasize that to everyone who's listening, because if they've listened to our other podcasts, we talk about finding purpose a lot, and it's a key theme, isn't it? So once again, that meaning and purpose comes into our chats.
Yeah, and if I look for happiness in this, happiness, to be honest, I don't really value happiness that much, because the moment I value it too much, I grab hold of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing you said, like even the meeting, right? You're on a high, but then this morning you wake up and the bins need to go out, or the dog's crapped on the floor, or like this. The problem with happiness, like for me, what you experience with the dinner is I go and play a cup final in cricket, right? You win the cup final and you're happy, but you have to know it's impermanent, and it comes back to that theme we always mention, which is impermanence. Liam Plunkett's an England fast bowler. And Liam Plunkett's an amazing guy, but you should listen to him. I think there's a little bit on YouTube, not much about it now, but he's an amazing guy, because what happened was he won the World Cup 2010, won the World Cup 2020 World Cup. England hadn't won a World Cup in a long time, and he said he sat on his couch the day after miserable, because he believed that the World Cup would bring him some sort of everlasting happiness. I think for me, the question about happiness is what lasts.
And that's so important. And I'm glad you brought that up, because you being a sportsman, I think this is why a lot of sportsmen, they get highs because they have this purpose, don't they? Your purpose in life is to play sport. And or say for an athlete, their purpose is to train for the Olympic Games. And you find this a lot. So after they retire or the event is finished, so it's very dangerous after the Olympic Games finish. A lot of the athletes go into quite a big depression, because they've devoted their life. Their sole purpose is very, very narrow, is to achieve at these games. But okay, now it's over. Then what?
Then what?
What do you do with the rest of your life, or you retire from sport? So and again, it comes down to their purpose is finished, and that can lead to a very dangerous point in their lives.
Absolutely.
And of course, emotions are low and drained.
The subject of happiness is such a fundamentally, like, you could even argue that most people are just looking for happiness in the wrong place. That's why I came back to if I think about some of the people I know who are very unhappy, the most unhappy people I know are chasing happiness, and they're looking for happiness. Right, and they're looking for it in the television or the food. They like this chocolate bar will make me. I'm sad. This chocolate bar will make me happy. This TV show will make me happy. And the thing is, if you keep plugging yourself in, you can give yourself the illusion that you're happy. But then when something externally is taken away from you, and this is the other point, is happiness.
Yeah.
When happiness comes as a result of living a life of meaning. So parenthood is fantastic, because parenthood gives you a sense of happiness because it comes from within you, right? Happiness has to come from within. It has to emanate from within. I always say this to Jess and I, we have a really strong sort of narrative in our marriage, which is Jess can't make me happy, right? I can have happiness emerge from me while I'm with Jess. But the problem is, if Jess can make me happy, she can make me sad, she can make me angry. And if anything in the external can make me happy, it can also make me depressed, and it can make me unhappy, and it can make me angry, and it can make me sad. And then I'm not grounded and rooted within my own being. It's like, That's why meaning, and meaning is deeply personal, purpose is deeply personal, and comes from within. So I think that's where the anchor is for happiness.
I just want to re-emphasize, you made such an amazing point, that happiness, and everyone's got to understand this, because I think most people don't. Happiness comes from within, as you say. So that's why, and who's responsible for that? You're responsible for yours. I'm responsible for my happiness. As you say, a lot of relationships have problems. You don't make me happy. No, that's not the purpose of the other person. And I think this is where a lot of relationship issues falter, because there seems to be some sort of notion that you marry someone, then they're going to make you happy. Or, well,
that's why divorce rates are so high.
Yeah, because there's an expectation that at all times that the purpose of the other person is to make their partner happy. No, I can't make my wife happy all the time. If she doesn't have her own sources of happiness, I'm not there for her to make her happy. I can help in that process for sure. And what we do together and what you do together just makes you together happy.
Same with jobs, Vipan, too, isn't it? Because it's the same. Like, if someone goes into a job and you think this job, and I think, we might be talking a little bit about some of the Gen Z stuff right now, right? Like, there's a real, divorce rates are going through the roof. People are staying in jobs a lot less time because the expectation is they go into a job and this is going to make me happy all the time. This job is going to make me happy all the time. And then what happens is a challenge comes across, and challenges don't make you happy in the moment, because there's the other thing with happiness is happiness has to come after the sacrifice, right? You should make a sacrifice for happiness. And people think, I want to make no sacrifice here and I want happiness in return, right? I'm going to make zero effort, zero sacrifice. I'm not going to meet the challenge of life. And I want to be rewarded with happiness when I have not given anything in return. Yeah. And I'm a big believer that, and it comes down to meaning, but I'm a big believer you prepay for happiness. Happiness, you have to make a prepayment, right? Prepayment comes in the form of, like, if I want the happiness of my body being in good shape, I have to run. I have to make the prepayment of having discipline and sacrifice. If I want the prepayment of happiness in my marriage, I have to give attention, and I have to be selfless, and I have to be devoted.
There's an effort involved, correct? There's got to be quid pro quo, as they say. You've got to give something to get something back.
Great.
Okay, and this is why I think people look at happiness. It's akin to chasing that rainbow. Yeah. So they think for example, so you said it's a pleasure. So they think, I'll be happy when. So they have these contingent externalities, as it were. So in everyday language, it means, I'm trying to say that if I get to somewhere, that will make me happy. When this happens, I will be happy. So the condition is, if I get this job, I will be happy. Yeah. When I get this car, it'll make me happy. I think this is where you talk so knowledgeably. I love the analogy of happiness and pleasure. Those give you, and I think everyone who's listening think, oh, you're talking rubbish. In fact, this is what science has shown anyway, so they can look this up themselves, the readers, listeners, that they've proven that pleasure is not the same as happiness, because it's only very temporary. But chasing things, this is why, if you ever think about it yourself, and I'm guilty, it gives you a high, so you buy something. This is why we live in this, we've been sort of marketed to death, because we've been told by the marketeers that we buy this, it'll make you happy. You see all these people, smiley, happy faces on these adverts, because the nirvana is, you buy this, it'll make you happy. You get a bit of pleasure for sure, maybe. You chase after something, a car, a watch, clothes, whatever it is, but you might have temporary happiness, but it's more of a pleasure. You get that dopamine or whatever it is, rush from buying or getting that, or promotion. Yeah. But then you think, okay, I've got the promotion. Wow. Then what? Yeah. Then what?
So, I was talking to my brother. My brother's just been with us for a couple of days, and I was talking to my brother about peace of mind, right? So happiness for me, right? True happiness for me feels more like satisfaction, or it feels like, so there's some other words which are better for me, contentment, peace of mind. And I said to my brothers, my brother's young man, chasing the, and me too. We're all chasing something, but we were talking about chasing stuff. I was like, you know what? The most valuable thing you're going to have is peace of mind, because you could give me £1 billion. If I don't have peace of mind, I have nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. If you give me a Bugatti, right? If I don't have peace of mind, I have nothing. You could give me a Skoda, an old Skoda, not the new ones because they're quite nice. You could give me an old Skoda, put me in the middle, or you could make me homeless. If I've got peace of mind, I've got everything I could possibly need. And so I think that's something we're really missing. Peace of mind. And this, I was talking to my brother, so as you get older, you get wiser and you begin to start to protect your peace of mind, because there is nothing more valuable than peace of mind, which is happiness, which is purpose, which is contentment and satisfaction. And I think that we've got it completely wrong, because we've got this like pleasure. Well, actually, I kind of pleasure now, as you get older and a bit wiser, you start to be a bit wary of pleasure, I think, because pleasure for me, if I feel there's pleasure involved in something, I get a little bit wary, because I think that's not going to last.
Yeah.
And also pleasure's sort of like, I mean, we might need to touch on something here actually, which is joy, because joy, right, is a very different emotion. So the emotion of joy, you meet people who are joyful, right, and it's something that they just are. In the same way, I'm a man and you're a man. They're just, joy is almost like the embodiment of happiness. You don't get joy for a moment, you get joy, and joy lasts a long time. You either meet someone who's got joy, or you don't. Like, I don't think I'm a particularly joyful person, and that's okay for me to say, but you meet people who are joyful.
Well, this is what I was, when we had this chat before the podcast started, and that gentleman who we talked about, who's 82, who suffered extreme loss of a loved one, their child, he was joyful, Simon. And what caused that? He had a philosophy in life. And that came from peace of mind and acceptance.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to be deterred or affected, shall we say, by even the most traumatic loss. And you can't have a more traumatic loss than losing your own child, Simon. Yet, I would say, I think it's an amazing word you used, joy, because he had that joy about him, and it was it came through his body, his pores. It was an essence. It was just, the aura. But
there's an African tribal saying, Vipan, which is, deep sadness carves the space for deep joy. Right? So deep sadness carves the space. So think of it like it's burrowing the space within that later on will be filled by deep joy.
Well, how do you explain that to the reader, to the listener then? How does that work?
Well, I've actually found, so right now, so if we talk about pleasure as being something that's very flicky and doesn't last, right? And then we've got happiness, which is this almost like golden thing we chase. And then joy is a deep embodiment of happiness. When you feel sad, so you imagine, right, it's not hard to bring a sadful thought if you've lived some life, right? Like, it's a deep feeling. Like, if I feel sad, I always say this to men that I'm working with, like, where is sadness in your body? Right, so if you close your eyes now, right, where is sadness in your body? Put your hands where the sadness is. Where is it?
Oh, in my lower back.
In your lower back, right?
Yeah.
And often in the belly, right? So it's in the lower back and in the belly, but it's lower in the body, right? We hold sadness. And so the African saying there is, once you've cleared that sadness by feeling it, there's a period there where there's nothing, but then later on a deep joy. And you meet these older people. So I think that you meet these older people, like this man you'd met. You meet them and it's a deep joy. You know he's had deep sadness, and it's because it's deep joy, which means it's been carved by deep pain. And that's kind of the goal for, in the Buddhist tradition, they see depression as a very, very high state of being. Like if you go and see a Buddhist Lama and you've got depression, they'll almost be celebrating because they'll say you're so close because you're deeply feeling, you're connected to the suffering of life, right? And actually, if you just sit there and you can accept, like you were saying, accept, and it might take a few years because just sadness doesn't go anywhere. It's heavy. Sit, accept. Don't run away from it. Don't chase pleasure. Sit. Something else starts to grow in its space. You know, it's almost like the sadness turns the soil for something else to be grown. You know, it's a deep philosophy in life. And if there's any joy in me right now, it's come from, if there's any embodiment of joy in me, it's come from, well, you know, we talked about in the death one, didn't we? We talked about when you've been through some stuff. I remember, I've told you this in the other podcast, but I remember Alan, the Buddhist counselor in my rehab, was a really real guy, 35 years in prison.
Wow.
Now a Buddhist, amazing counselor, speaks like this, and he'd go, all right, Alan, how are you? And he'd go, I've been a lot fucking worse. And he didn't, and he was teaching us something. He'd go, how are you, Alan? I've been a lot fucking worse. And he walked around in this state of joy. Because he spent 35 years in prison and he's not in there anymore.
Yeah.
And he was in joy because he'd been through hell.
Yeah.
But maybe joy is the result of coming through hell. There's another saying, just quickly, I'm going to stop talking. I've been talking for a couple of minutes. But there's another saying too, which is like, this is spirituality for me. Spirituality is about finding joy within. And there's another one, which is religion is for people who are afraid of religion is for people who are afraid of going to hell. Spirituality is for people who have been there and they're come back. You know, and that's you know, joy is like proper. I respect people who have joy because I think that person, like you, Vipan, you have a bit of joy to you because you've nearly, you know, you've had 3 heart attacks, mate. Live some life.
Yeah, well, thank you, Simon. But I think, but all the listeners can attain happiness. There's things people can do, can't they? There's things that every day that make you happy, which don't pertain to chasing things, material things. So there's things that make everyone. There's the simple things in life, don't they, that make me happy. And same. So I want to tell the listeners that, you know, for example, just listening to great music can make you happy.
Yeah.
Can't it? It's uplifting. It can be.
Yeah,
spiritual.
there are certain things, aren't there? Vipan, there's certain things that can make you happy that are external. Like music's a great one.
But it stimulates a tranquility within you. So even that, being grateful, for example, can make you happy. If you practice, we talk about gratitude a lot, don't we? Yeah. And how important that is, because that's basically acknowledging all the good things that are there for us in our life.
Yes.
And then that then transforms our thinking and can make you happy. It does over time. It gives you that sense of being as well, that tranquility.
Well, I like that, and I think that comes to another. I like this quote too: "The grass is greener where you water it." You know that one, like the grass is greener where you water it.
You've got to
talk a lot about that. You've got to nurture your own happiness. And it's a little bit every day. You don't make the grass grow in a day and make it green. It's a little bit of watering every day, and that's where gratitude practice is very powerful. Yes,
you have to do things each day to attain a certain level of happiness. It just doesn't magically appear. I think that's the message. But there are simple things that people wander around not even realizing. The birds singing, the beautiful greenery around them. Hopefully there is some, or find some nearby. But the wonderful aspect of nature. It's these things that people can do. Even exercise can give you, and looking after your body. And nourishing yourself, your body and your mind, that can make you happy. You read a great book. Why does that, if you can read a great piece of writing or something, for me, that stimulates my mind and does something to my internally that I feel happy that I've read this book. It's a wow. So I'm trying to say that there's loads of things that people can do, simple things, without the need perpetually for chasing the job, the money. Because again, we've got to tell the reader, the listener, the scientists have proven that after a certain level of salary, your happiness does not get any better. Obviously, we need a certain amount of money to ease those, for peace of mind, and to live a certain life, cover the costs. But then thereafter, the rest is that surplus does not make you an X amount. So you get a pay rise of 100,000. You're not going to get £100,000 worth of happiness. That marginal utility from an economist's point of view.
I'll tell you though, just for me, someone who has, big goals, like I'm a reason, and you were big thinking. Another thing that really helped me was realizing that I'll never be finished. So I'm never going to get to the end, right? That really helps. But actually, I think it's a Tony Robbins. It's not the goal that's important. It's the person you have to become to achieve it. And it was like, okay, if chasing this so let's say I had a goal of making £100 million, right? 100 million. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to make 100 million for whatever reason. That's my goal. It's knowing deeply that the 100 million is not actually what's going to make me happy. It's the person I'm going to become along the way. And then this ultimately, I mean, if I think about, I was going to ask you a question. What makes you happy? And then I was thinking in my mind, I was like, okay, what makes me growth?
Yes.
Growth.
Yeah.
Growth makes me so happy. I love growing, right? I love growing, and that's why I strive to grow. Because
you have a challenge. That it's a challenge for you, and when you do grow, you've attained a challenge. To grow means that you have gained something, but it's been a challenge to get there. As you said, there's been a cost to you. You've had to acquire that growth.
Yeah.
It doesn't get handed to you. You haven't won the lottery. The lottery is a misnomer. It doesn't make you happy because you're just given it. So you find that out with a lot of people. Sorry? That's
why people lose their lottery money straight away.
Yeah.
Most people get that, and they end up more unhappy than when they, I think it's something like 70% of lottery winners lose their money and then they're more unhappy afterwards.
It's because it's just handed to them. They haven't done anything to get that. It's a bit of great luck and fortune, but it's not the same as when you grow spiritually and you've done something for yourself and you've gained that, and that's why you feel happy, because wow, I've achieved. It's a sense of achievement from within though, okay, and that's what then when you have that growth, you become a better person. As you said, it is the journey, but it is the person you become during that journey that's really important. So this is why purpose, it all stems back from purpose. You have this all-encompassing word purpose, but that means that you have a challenge, and it'll make you grow when you have that purpose. Yeah. So this is why I think it's important for the listeners to understand that, and that's why chasing that temporary dream of a job, a watch, or whatever, it's like, then what? You'll then sit on the bench like your friend and cricketer Plunkett the next day. He's won the trophy. Then what?
Exactly. Then what?
Yeah.
And we've got about 1 minute left. I've got this, Disney. I think Disney has so much to answer for, and I've got this. I don't know, maybe in another lifetime, to make the sequels to Disney movies, right? So Jasmine and Aladdin, they end up together. It's a happy ending. Jasmine gets fat. Aladdin has to start putting the bins out, and he can't just run around on a fucking magic carpet. Aladdin looks at Jasmine and goes, "Oh my god, it's just like you're getting old."
What happened to you?
Right? And then she's like, "Oh my god, won't you just fucking come home? You keep running around on this magic carpet." I just want to make like the sequel to Disney movies, because what we do is it leaves us, "Oh my god, if I meet the right person, that's it." And it's like Disney just stops right before real life starts. And I've always had this theory about Disney. We're time's up, mate.
Oh wow, that was fun. I hope we've given some nuggets. Got some nuggets for the listeners there, Simon.
Yeah, and good for us too. I do love reminders today.
Yeah, it is. It's a good reminder.
Why don't we talk about? Do you know what, Vipan? Let's talk about marriage. Let's talk about. I want to talk about being married and having a woman in our lives, and I want to talk about. Maybe it stems into fatherhood, but I want to talk about. We touched on something there which I think is really important. I've got a lot of male friends and female friends for Jess who are chasing, the one. And I look at you as someone who I think you've got a long-lasting marriage. You've obviously been through a lot together. I've been married for 10 minutes, but I've already been through quite a lot. And I just think that'd be a fun conversation to talk about real intimacy. You know, what is it really like to co-create a life with someone? You know, you and Rajni, you create a life together. I really admire the life you've got children. And I can tell already Rajni's a strong woman too. And I know I have a strong woman in my house. Very strong woman.
Yeah, it's good.
Something that'd be a really valuable thing to talk about.
Okay, let's do that. Happy to do that.
Bye, and I'll catch you afterwards. I'll just press stop now. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Cheers.